Welcome to a rare opportunity where we take the SIP show on the road. Wine Club members and great friends in Colorado were kind enough to open up their wonderful home and, more importantly, to the wine-loving audience in attendance, their cellar, to this week's broadcast of SIP featuring Davis Estates. You are going to want to see this unique property and learn more about the reveal behind that door with proprietor Mike Davis, who joins us from Hawaii. Stay tuned for SIP episode 81. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to SIP episode 81. Not many of us thought it would get past 10, and here we are at 81. And it's due in large part to everyone that tunes in on a weekly basis, everyone that purchases wine from Cellar Angels, and all of you wine enthusiasts that simply can't get enough of undiscovered wine country. These hidden gems that lay away, that don't produce a lot of wine, that actually make some of the best wine in the country. And these are the wineries we like sharing with you. My name is Martin Cody, co-founder of Cellar Angels, a direct-to-consumer wine company that specializes exclusively in limited production wineries from Napa and Sonoma. So tonight we have a very, very special treat for you. The program could be 2 hours because there is just so much content to talk about, because this is truly a unique story, kind of an American story, if you will, from a humble beginning, starting a company in a garage. Where have you heard that before out of California? And now to where we are today, to just an unbelievable winery where you experience things that you haven't experienced at any other winery up and down Napa Valley. So I want to raise a glass and introduce tonight's guest, my friend Mike Davis from Davis Estates. Cheers, Mike.
Thank you, Martin. It's great to be here.
And you may notice the print on Mike's shirt, the book over his shoulder. He's coming to us live from the big island of Hawaii. So this is incredible from that standpoint, to take time out in the middle of the day and join us. So we're appreciative of that. And already joining us is Alyssa, Brian, Eric, Hans and Caitlin, Jan, Karen, Catherine, Kent, long time no see, Lori, Peter, Sean, who is actually upstairs hosting the studio audience, because if I were to show you all of the people downstairs who are being very quiet right now, they're all gone. So they're all upstairs eating and socializing, which is fine. Mike, I want to start kind of at the beginning, and we're drinking and featuring everybody the 2017 Davis Estates Cabernet Sauvignon. It's one of many great wines from the Davis Estates portfolio, and it is tasting fantastic right now. We had ours open for about 45 minutes, a little decant into bottle time and then in the glass. Let's go back to the beginning in San Mateo, suburb of San Francisco, and where you grew up, and how did you come to discover Napa Valley as a young man, so to speak, or a young child?
I don't know that I could claim to discover Napa, because when we grew up, we didn't have a lot of money. My parents used to take us camping, and their favorite place to go camping was up by Lake Berryessa in Napa County, and loved Napa. Horseback riding, bows and arrows, fishing, just had a great time, all the way up till teenage years. And then, girls came into your life when you're a teenager, right? So
how old, were you a grade schooler at this point in time?
Yeah, I was probably, we started going when I was in first grade, so 6 years old, all the way up to just before high school. We'd go camping up in Napa. Love Napa. It's just a very, very special place.
And what about siblings?
I have 2 younger sisters and a younger brother. And through the course of the years, when we started, there was just my sisters and I, and then eventually my brother came along. And as a family, all 6 of us would go camping. And then eventually we kind of splintered because we get into high school and life gets in the way and everybody goes different directions. But
right.
Just a love of Napa Valley.
Now, it's a special place. And so then you, and there's a trivia question later on about where you went to school and how you went to school. So don't tell anybody that, because I don't want to let the cat out of the bag there. Thank you. But I'm kind of curious if there was a wine epiphany to where someone took you aside and you tasted, a Haut-Brion or something that just was magical, and you thought, wow, I need to learn a little bit more about this?
Well, you go to college, and I was in a fraternity. In a fraternity, you drink beer, but if you want
Right.
to go on a date, girls prefer wine. So, first date was generally like Boone's Farm or, Riuniti on ice or something. And then second date was maybe, Lancers in the terracotta bottle of rosé. And, third date, ooh, that was, Blue Nun, because that was like $4.
You're going up the wine lineage chart.
Oh yeah, we thought we were so sophisticated because we were drinking wine, in our 20s, right? And then I call it OPM, other people's money. All of a sudden, you go out into business and you start going out and having nice dinners, and you have Bordeaux's, and you have, Napa's, Merlots and Cabernets, and you have Burgundies, and Mad Dog 2020 just doesn't taste good anymore after you've been sophisticated in your taste buds. So as time goes along, you drink better and better wines. And, I love wines. And then I was, we started a business, and I took a lot of accounts out for dinners. And I had several people in the aerospace business that really had a, very sophisticated taste and taught me a lot about wines. And so I loved the Bordeaux's, I loved the Burgundies, loved, Napa Cabs and Merlots and things of that nature. And so that was probably the epiphany during that course of 2 decades, where we're having all these wonderful wines, and was, experimenting in a lot of different wines and cultures.
Was there a time, I can imagine that being daunting? You start a computer business, and your familiarity with wine was, like the ones you mentioned, Boone's Farm, Blue Nun, and then you're taking clients out to dinner, and you're the host, and they're handing you the wine list.
No, they didn't hand me the wine list. They took the wine list, says we're having a Chateau, we're having a Chateaubriand, we're going to have a Chateau Mouton, or we're going to have a Lafite, or we're going to have a Latour. They were the ones that picked the wines because they had a lot more sophisticated taste than I did. And I just learned. I had to pay for it, but I learned.
That's trial by fire if I've ever heard it before. Thank goodness for expense accounts.
Absolutely. And as long as they bought a lot of stuff from us, I was fine with that.
Right. I am getting a note that says, is there any way you could turn up Mike's volume or Martin's down? So I wonder if they're hearing Mike in the background. And maybe I'll stop yelling, which would be rare.
Now,
perfect.
I didn't do anything, but is that better?
We'll see. Someone will comment in the chat.
Okay.
And so okay, they said it's perfect now. Awesome.
Okay.
So you became indoctrinated into Bordeaux, kind of in the restaurant scene, and did it pique an interest?
It did, because at the time, way before we started the computer company, I was in the business, and then my now wife of almost 40 years, we used to go to Napa once or twice a year. And we loved Napa Valley. In fact, there was one time that epiphany kind of evolved, where we were at Sterling, which is up in the northern part of Calistoga. We were having a wine tasting, and I looked around and I said, wouldn't this be something special if we could do this later on in life after we retire? Not knowing 42 years later, we absolutely were going to do this.
And was her answer yes, or you're out of your mind?
I think she's got a better taste for wine, a more sophisticated taste. In fact, a lot of our white wines are because they're wines that she had a preference for in other markets, and then we shaped our wines according to her taste buds. So she has a very sophisticated taste, and we follow that direction. I prefer reds, as most guys do. Big, bold, spicy, layered, and so. We kind of ham and egged it and came up with a portfolio that we currently have.
Interesting. And so it's kind of a nice duo complement, to where you get your big, bold reds, and then she has kind of the more refined, elegant smattering of the portfolio, and together everything just works.
It does. Well, there's one wine we have, which is a Bordeaux blend, that I specifically asked because I love a Bordeaux blend with the Cabernet Franc, Merlot, and Petit Verdot. And this in 2020, we will be adding a Malbec because we couldn't find one that was up to our level. And we will be adding that in 2020 to the wine.
And now, will that would be estate grown, or did you find a source?
Well, estate grown is really very, very, tight restrictions. So estate grown has to be on the property, grown, processed, bottled on the property. We don't, we have multiple, we have Howell Mountain, we have Carneros, we have Rutherford that we own, but you can't call it estate because it's off the primary property. And plus, we probably buy about 60% of our grapes from other farmers in the valley. We don't have enough acreage to grow our own.
So you're sitting there in Napa, and I think everyone has had kind of that epiphany dream. I know I have had it 50 times or more. And from a Midwesterner standpoint, when you drive across that Golden Gate Bridge or the Bay Bridge, it's cathartic. You come in the bucolic wine country, you get up there and you realize you're sitting out on a veranda somewhere, you're looking at the valley, and you just think, boy, this doesn't suck. This is kind of nice. One day we could do this. And so was it kind of like that?
Over a course of period, because what happened is we ended up selling the computer company. It was one of those, we talked about this as a dream. If we don't do this now, we'll never do it. And I'll take luck over skill any day. And timing was perfect because we had the mortgage meltdown industry in the 2008. And so when we sold our computer company, it was 2010. And as a result, my wife and I started buying property in 10, 11, and 12. So there were so many beautiful properties up in Napa Valley. She actually got upset with me because I bought 7 different properties. And the one property I fell in love with, which is the winery, quarter mile of, frontage on Silverado Trail, and had this amazing view from the Vaca Mountains to the Mayacamas on the west side. And it just spoke to me, but it was in bankruptcy.
Well, so, and it's interesting that you were buying obviously property at that point in time from the financial meltdown and the real estate market and everything. So you picked a great time to buy. Did you tell the kids that, hey, mom and dad are thinking about buying some property in Napa?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And in fact, one funny story for those that know my son, Brandon, at the time, he was dating this lady named Erica. And they were walking through one of the vineyards, and Erica goes, I always wanted to get married in a vineyard. And my son goes, who are you marrying? Because he hadn't asked her yet.
Well, he ended up pulling it off, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, and actually the vineyard she walked through, they ended up getting married at the Rutherford house, and then did the party in the vineyard. And so her dream, her fantasy, all came true.
And so let's talk about the property. You talked about the frontage road aspect to it and how the property just speaks to you, but it has a really, really impressive history. And you are, I believe, had a major in history, so you have quite a adept fondness for things of historical perspective. Was there a draw to it from the historical perspective? Was it just the physical aspect of it, the size, or the financial deal that you could potentially have? Walk me through your thought process on that.
So when we were looking at property, and we literally went all the way up through Sonoma, all the way up to Lake County, and then Lake County all the way down through Napa, and looked at dozens and dozens of property. But there was an old barn there, and I loved old barns, and it was 155 acres, but it was in total disrepair, but I could see the potential. So the old barn drew me there, the location, because there's 100-point vineyards all around us up in the northern Napa Valley. And so we knew the quality of grapes were there. Across the street, we have Duckhorn. To the south of us, we've got, there's Harlan, and everybody's down there in, Oakville. And so the quality was there. The romance was there. The evolution of the property was, after we bought it, was a modest winery, and it turned into an amoeba that just kept doubling and growing and doubling. And because we had a vision of, we wanted to create an environment where our guests would be welcome, it would be warm, come on in, let us take care of you. And so my wife and I designed the winery to be something that we would want to go to and visit and have an experience. So it's not just about drinking wine, it's the whole experience. It's the floral and fauna, it's the view, it's the chef, it's the wine, it's the experience that you have there. You're going to want to stay for an hour and a half, 2 hours, because it's a very special environment.
It's a crazy special environment, and I'll get to the experiences and stuff in a second, and then I also want to get to a philosophy question about those experiences. But before I do, let's get to the collegiate aspect of, and I'm going to launch the poll question, because as Mike indicated, he grew up in San Mateo, just south of San Francisco, but he went to Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, on a scholarship. So for what sport did Mike attend IU on a scholarship? And I have two brothers that went to IU, so I'm quite familiar with Little Five and a whole bunch of other things down there that tend to take years off your life. Giving some people, see, we have to, there's time limits on these questions, Mike, because I know our audience, as much as I love them, has a tendency to use their smartphones for the answer. So we have to stop the poll very quickly. I'm going to give this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, interestingly enough, everyone is correct. He did not attend a scholarship for high jump. So what sport did you get a full ride to IU in?
Track and field. So I threw the shot put and the discus, and it's
Oh, discus. Okay.
Yeah.
So track and field. So we'll give partial credit to everybody that said shot put and javelin.
Yeah, I did throw the javelin. I wasn't very good at it, but primarily excelled in the discus and then did well in shot put.
Oh, that's outstanding. And what was the culture shock coming from the Bay Area to Bloomington?
Oh my goodness. So I thought winter clothes was a Levi jacket and a pair of gloves. And when it reached 10 below zero one afternoon where I had to go to class, that was the culture shock right there.
The climate shock. And normally there's a gentleman named Scotland and his wife Lily that are on, and they're IU alums. So he's going to be sad he missed this, because he would love to be talking to a fellow Hoosier.
And I think the other thing is that the people in the Midwest are so nice, because I grew up in California. So in California, it's like, I don't trust you until I can trust you. In the Midwest, it's like, oh, you're my friend and I can trust you until I can't trust you.
Right.
So the reversal there. And I still have a lot of friends that are based out of the Midwest and just the salt of the earth, wonderful people.
I agree. And it's funny because you saw a whole bunch of different crops in the Midwest, row crops versus the vineyards. And we had a question in the chat. If I read the question correctly, do you have any regrets or desires that wish you would have bought farmland these days as opposed to vineyards?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
So
opposed to a winery, yeah.
In a sense, we are farmers. We grow grapes, but we make a yummy, sexy product that, by the way, if you do get stressed, you just open another bottle and pretty soon you can't remember why you're stressed.
Yeah, not the same when you're peeling ears of corn. It doesn't matter how many you peel. It's not a stress reducer.
Wheat, none of the above.
Right, exactly. Wheat, soybeans, cotton. Nope, not stress reducers. Okay, so now you have purchased the property, 155 acres, and the philosophy behind the experiences is interesting, because I know family is very, very important. And you talked about it a second ago. You want to have people stay an hour and a half or more. You've got food by a chef with every single tasting experience. Who came up with this concept, and why is the experience so important to you, and why does it resonate? Where does that come from?
So my wife and I had gone to a lot of different wineries prior to designing and building this winery, and we enjoyed the food aspect of it. It adds another layer, and wine alone is great. Wine with food and then friends, that's the best. So what we did was we hired a gentleman named Howard Backen, and Howard is our Frank Lloyd Wright of Napa Valley, if you will. The interview was very interesting because after we bought the property, Carrie Gott, who's our winemaker for Davis Estates, and very integral in putting this whole platform together, because he's fourth generation based out of Napa Valley. He knows everybody. And so my wife and I went around and looked at a lot of different facilities. And every time we said, this is beautiful, it was always Howard Backett. So we said, well, let's bring Howard in. We're going to interview him. By the way, Howard's 84 right now. He's opening a new office in Montecito. Yeah, I know. He's
not slowing down, huh?
He is something very special. And so Howard showed up, and the first thing out of Howard's mouth is, basically, are you worthy of my design? And like, set me back on my heels. And the other one was, do you have enough money to build what I designed? I said, well, I have a budget, and here's my budget. And Howard came back with, that's just a number on a piece of paper, and I don't pay attention to it. And he didn't.
Wow. That is fascinating. And you mentioned Kerry Gott. And for those of you who don't know, Kerry, not only 4 generations, he's got 4 decades or more of winemaking, wine consultation. His resume would run the length of my arm. And there's very few of the iconic wineries in Napa Valley, the 100-point wineries, that he hasn't had fingerprints on at some point in time or another. And just a gem of an individual. And that's who's crafting the wine in your glass tonight. And let's talk about the architecture, because it's funny, you talked about the barn, that kind of the nostalgia of a barn. And you're right, there is something indescribable about an old barn. And it just takes you back to a distant time, and you hear the doors creak open and stuff like that. And you wonder just how many thousands of times a farmer has backed a tractor out of there or brought horses into they could tell stories. And you've got one on the property that's over 100 years of age.
That is correct. It was built by the family called the Sauvignon. And if we back up a little bit, the Sauvignons immigrated into the Napa Valley in the late 1800s. The upper northern valley, about 3,000 acres, was owned by the Hitchcocks that time. You'll probably recognize their daughter. Her name was Lily Coit Hitchcock, Coit Tower, same person. The Sauvignons became the vineyard managers, and eventually they carved off that property, and they bought it. And there's a question: is that Michael Sauvignon? Yeah, he was the 3rd generation. So it went through 3 generations. From what I understand, they borrowed money and they weren't able to pay it back, and it went into bankruptcy. So it was sad. At the same time, a door closes and a window opens, and so we ended up buying the property. And there's a question about the Petit Syrah. Yeah, that was one of the vineyards. There's a whole story about the Petit Syrah, because when I bought the property, we had Kerry Gott as our winemaker, but I wanted to bring another winemaker in named Philippe Melka, who's that high-end 100-point. Robert Parker loves him. And we made a wine called Phase 5. And we only make 3 wines. We make a Petit Syrah, a Cabernet Sauvignon, and then we make a blend, which is a Cabernet Sauvignon and a Petit Syrah. So we're walking. I bring him in to interview him, and he and I got along famously. Just like we just did it off like brothers. And even though he's from Bordeaux, he studied geology. And then when he came to the United States, became a winemaker, but he was a cellar rat at Petrus and Cheval Blanc. Pretty lofty places to be a cellar rat, right?
Yeah.
But this wonderful individual that has a creative gift. And we're walking the property, and he's telling me about the upper blocks. And I'm like, how do you even know about the upper blocks? And he goes, oh, I bid on this property with 4 investors. And I'm like, you're the guy that bid against me. So smart as I pay him to work the property, and he still gets the property. But we walked up to the Petit Syrah, and I said, well, what is this? And he goes, it's Petit Syrah. And I'm like, well, let's pull this and let's put in Cabernet Sauvignon. And Philippe goes, no. What do you mean, no? I own it. And he goes, no, you don't understand, Mike. It's the eastern part of the valley. It's volcanic ash. It's 30-degree slope into the western sunset. It's perfect Petit Syrah. And I'm like, well, who's going to make it? And he goes, I will. I'm like, you don't make a Petit Syrah. And he goes, this one I will make.
I make one now.
He does. We make about 100, 150 cases a year of that Petit Syrah. That's all that vineyard produces.
Wow, that is very, very special. And you're right. Philippe is another one that has 15 to 20 wineries. that are the top of anybody's quote unquote cult desired list. And he is highly sought after for his skills and soil recognition and vine potential and stuff like that. Vineyard 29, Parallel, he's all over the place. That's a great story. And the limited production side of that is interesting. And then you call it phase 5. Why?
Well, there were 5 phases to build the winery. The first phase was, let's go find it. And so we ended up finding the property and acquiring it. Second phase was, we're farmers. New infrastructure, vines, wells, trellis work. Third phase was design the winery. Fourth phase was to build the winery. And then fifth phase was May of 2016, we opened the doors to the winery. So there are 5 phases of the operation. Originally, it was a placeholder. And what ended up happening was the name just stuck. And so that was another one of those epiphanies where I woke up as we were, Howard designed the plans, we sent them through the county, got everything signed off. And then I woke up one night, it's like, I need a room that's really high end for those guests that want a special experience. And so I love cars. And so I thought about a Rolls Royce hubcap. So I made a room that's round with an octagon cellar of glass in the center. And that's our phase 5 room. So that's the one you have to use. It's got a Fujitsu infrared vein scanner that scans the pattern of your veins, knows who you are for our members, and then the door opens up, light comes up, music comes up, and it's a very special room. And that's where we age our phase 5 barrels.
It's special, I think, is an understatement. It is, and I've been in a lot of wine caves. And all of them to me have and I don't have children, so I can say this. They're like children because they each have their unique traits. They each have kind of their special attributes, some quirky, some, maybe a little bit showy. Yours is off the charts, elegant, luxurious, cool, jaw-dropping, all of it, and aesthetically pleasing, functional, where, some are just James Bond-esque, where you're like, well, I can't spend too much time here because I'm freezing. You found a remedy for that. And I can vouch for you that the sophisticated technology that scans the veins in your hand, it works, because my hand was not allowed in and the doors did not open. So that is impressive technology. And that's for the wine club members or for the phase 5 members?
Yeah, we have one called, it's a founder member. We've capped it at about 150 people because if everybody orders several cases of wine, we run out of wine. And that is specifically for that room. We allow people to go in there. We allow, some functionality in there. But, here again, I came from technology, and the people down there in Silicon Valley could buy and sell me with pocket change. So it's like, what do I put together that's going to knock their socks off? And then the other reason where you hit on it is I have a beautiful wife and 2 daughter-in-laws, and women, their number one concern in the cave is I get cold. They wear sleeveless blouses and short skirts and open-toed shoes, and they look amazing, right? But we as men, we wear socks and shoes, and we have long pants and long sleeve shirts, and more masks than other people. And so as a result, we stay warmer. So that there's heaters in that room specifically because of the ladies in my life.
Smart man, got to take care of the ladies in your life. All things, good things usually result when that happens. And after this video, if you want, anyone can go to the Cellar Angels website, click on the Davis Estates offer, and you'll see in the Cellar Angels video, Mike was kind enough to take us in that room, and we shot some film in there. It is a pretty special room. I would like you to talk a minute about the light fixture that's hanging.
Okay. Here we go. So it's steel doors, because it's 100 feet underground and it's 250 feet back from the main cave entrance. And
so here's the hand, if you can, I don't know if you can see my cursor, or maybe Denise can show, the hand scanner is on the wall.
It's on the right-hand side, about 3.5 feet. You can see the little, it's a square of about 1 inch by 1 inch, and it basically sends out a cone of infrared light that goes through your palm and it reads your vein pattern. It's a pretty cool, sophisticated technology.
Where, they don't just sell those at IKEA or a Costco. Where did you find that?
So I had a friend of mine that went back to the CIA in DC, and they went to a meeting and they said, there's this room they went into that they had to use a hand scanner to go in. And originally it was going to be a key fob, but that was kind of passe. And I didn't like anything against my face to look at my retina. So I called Fujitsu up and talked to them about the technology. And they said, yeah, here's what it does. It scans this. And so it works great. It sits on an HP, basically Unix server. And those are the doors open. And then as you walk in the room, I was very specific about a table of 8. The chairs have to be very comfortable because most people spend a couple of hours down in this room. And it's a heated glass box, if you will, that's an octagon.
Yeah, you walk in, and where the chairs are there, you're surrounded by an octagonal shaped glass enclosure that goes extremely high up. And so that's temperature controlled for the most part. And the barrels are stored on the outside of that in the 55-degree relative humidity that you would expect for barrel storage, but you aren't standing there shivering in heels and open-toed shoes. And so you've thought of everything from that capacity. That is a magical environment to taste in. And I'm hoping we can potentially go back to that. Oh yeah, here's the barrels surrounding the walls. And you have quite an art collection. How did that come about?
Well, my wife and I started giving each other artwork on our honeymoon. We gave each other little pieces of scrimshaw, and that's continued for the last 40 years. So every anniversary, we try to give each other something or buy something together. And so as a result, we've got a lot of pieces that we've accumulated over the last 4 decades.
And so 4 decades of artwork, I mean, not all the pieces that you accumulated, but you have those in the various alcoves surrounding the wine room.
There's a number of them there. We also have a number of them in our houses as well. But yes, and we wanted to share some of those. I mean, there's some Murano glass in that room that we specifically bought when we were in Murano, Italy, for that room, and it's special, unique, and it has great big thick putty underneath it because we have things called earthquakes in California.
And I've asked Mission Control to put this picture back up because of I don't even know what you call it. It's not a chandelier. It's what is this? And if Mission Control would be kind enough to put her mouse over the chandelier, that little piece there.
There should be another slide somewhere that shows inside of that room, but it is a chandelier. It's made out of 2,000 stainless steel chains that hang from the ceiling. It weighs about 700 pounds. It's full of lights. It's made by a company called Hudson out of New York, and it's called the Mothers Series. My wife and I had seen this probably 40 years ago at a show, and we absolutely fell in love with it. And I remembered it when we were designing the room. I said, I know exactly the chandelier I want to put in here. And so Howard reached out to them, and it's like, well, we don't have one that big. So Howard had to make one that was big enough for that room.
What was the percentage over under of the figure you gave Howard? I'm going to go with the over at about 25%.
6x.
Oh, that is absolutely adorable. I don't care about your figure. I'm just going to make what I want to make.
And there we go. So I'm my own worst enemy because we designed it on paper and I fell in love with everything. In fact, I added things like right there in the center, there's a round kugel ball, and it's a 5,000 pound solid granite ball that sits on 8 inches of granite that's cut out as a Cabernet Sauvignon leaf. And it's 4 gallons a minute, 14 PSI. It lifts up that water, the water lifts the ball and it rotates it. And it's an artistic representation of a grape and a leaf. That's it. That's all it does. And
this one was your idea?
Yeah, we'd had one in our computer company, and I sent it to Kusher and said, here's what I want to do. Can we do this? And they said, yes. And I just did it. So probably should have asked them how much it cost, but I didn't.
And how much did you say it weighed?
The ball weighs 5,000 pounds. It came in a container. It was 20,000 pounds when it was packed in the container because it's got huge infrastructure underneath it. The granite leaf that it sits on, it's a green granite. It's 8 inches thick and about 10 foot by 10 foot.
No, it is. You can stand by this ball, and I know because I did this in blazing hot sunlight when we filmed in August, and it is rotating, and it's 5,000 pounds on a thin film layer of water. But as it's rotating, you can put your hand on it, stop it, and then move it in a different direction, and then it will just start rotating that direction. It is, from a physics standpoint, mind altering. It is incredible.
It's something I'd seen it, 30 years ago down in San Diego. They had one, and it was just fascinating. I sat there for 45 minutes and just stared at it. So we put one in our computer company when we built our headquarters, and then when we did the center, I like things that are very symmetrical and balanced. So that was kind of the center point. And so we needed something there, a water feature, and that's what we came up with.
Yeah, no, it's a great welcoming piece, because as you walk up, you see that and it immediately captivates you. And you're right, you can stand there for 45 minutes. First of all, you're just going to stand there and marvel at the engineering of it. And then the symmetry of the leaf holding up the grape, it all blends itself. And it's just the start of the experiences that you're going to have at Davis. Everything else just unfolds from there. And we're going to allow folks, if they want to turn on their camera, to feel free and let Mike know who you are and maybe have a question. That's fantastic. We do want to also talk about something that comes up fairly often, and it was the fires of 2020. And Davis Estates wasn't spared. And I'm going to show some pictures. First, I want to show you some Google Earth, because there is some great aerial shots, but then you'll get a greater glimpse when we show you some still pictures of just the fire. And who you don't know, general manager is also on this, who's helping with the chat. Everyone pitched in, everyone ran to the winery, and Cal Fire used it as kind of an area and stationed themselves there. And I don't ever want to experience this. And the people that experience this, these pictures tell a story that you don't want to actually see very often. So I'm going to show some Google Earth stuff right now. And Mike, if you can talk a little bit about the fire as we're doing that.
Sure. So Napa's had fires for the last 5 years in a row, 17, 18, 19, 20. Hey, there's Hawaii.
Yeah, I put that on because everyone knows it's my favorite place besides Napa. And that's where Mike is calling us from. So I'll get back to the fires in just a quick second. For those of you that are new, we don't focus on Hawaii except for pleasure and leisure, which is not often enough. We focus on, there's Big B. I see you, Brian. We focus on our favorite little spot in the wine world, Napa and Sonoma. And so you see Napa right here. On the Sonoma side, you see Santa Rosa, Healdsburg. Mike talked about going up to Lake County, and that's up here. Here's Lake Berryessa, where it's used to camp and fish, and I'm sure put frogs in your pocket, as every little boy does. Now let's go and show you where Davis is. And we focus on this area because of its climate, because of its proximity to a maritime influence, because of the elevation changes, because of the soil structure. It has like 33 of the 67 or so known soil types in the world. I mean, it is just a tapestry of rich winemaking canvas that you can produce masterpieces. And Mike has a property that's producing them. So when you look at where we are here, this is kind of the backside of Davis Estates. And one thing you'll notice is the coloration of these trees, because they've all been burnt. And as you can see, the winery, and Mike, you can tell us, I mean, the winery wasn't spared.
No, it wasn't. We had two different fires, where there was a lightning fire that had broke out in August. And in 2017, I bought my own fire truck, because firemen are awesome. They go into harm's way. They save lives, but if they don't have time, they won't save buildings. I'd kind of like to save our building. So we've rolled out the fire truck several times. We had the fire truck rolled out for this particular fire, which is called the Glass Fire, because just south of that is Glass Mountain Road that runs out to Howe Mountain. And we don't know how it started, but it started there. It climbed kind of northeast behind us. The planes dropped Phos-Chek on the hills behind us. There was like a 6 to 8 mile an hour northeast wind, and we thought we were fine. I was down in Southern California because I had a rotator cuff surgery and I wasn't allowed to fly up for blood clot. So I was watching all this. Oh. And Jessica was on the property. My son Brandon was on the property, well, both with their significant others. And about 7 o'clock that night, the winds rotated from a northeast version to about 40 to 50 miles an hour southwest. And that's when it came down, kind of, you can see way back in the back, way back up in there, that it just came roaring over the hill, and it was a firestorm. It literally looked like a blowtorch. And the firemen came in and they stationed 3 engines on the property. Jessica had let them know that there was 3 primary buildings we wanted to save: the winery, the old historic barn, and our offices. There was another barn, if you zoom in a little more, on the far left-hand side, but it's made out of steel. You can see where the solar panels are right there. That's all made out of steel. It survived. It probably got hotter than hell in there during the fire, but it survived. So that fire literally came down the hill and went through us. It burned the vineyards, it burned the landscape, it burned tablecloths inside the winery. But the firemen, 5 men per truck, 3 trucks, 15, they used about 75,000 gallons during the course of the fire. They sprayed down the three buildings between about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night till 4:30 in the morning, and they saved us. And we are here because of their bravery and their efforts to save the winery.
Yeah, it's a pretty magical place. And you can see from when this shot was, to see this fire coming down the mountainside. And I'm going to show some pretty vivid pictures here in a second and a video, but I want you to pay attention to this windmill, because there's a camera mounted on the windmill. And the windmill is actually over a water well, if I'm not mistaken.
Here, that goes back to growing up and then going back to school in the Midwest. I love windmills. So there was a well there. We dug down 260 feet, and I designed out and we built an old time windmill with an aero motor on it. And when the wind blows, it pumps, 4 gallons a minute. Now we have 7 other wells that pump close to 200 gallons a minute. But that was specifically designed just because I love windmills and old barns.
So here's some shots of the fire. So here's the main tasting area, and this is just directly behind, coming down that mountainside. Let me actually do this. This will be faster. So here's that beautiful 5,000 pound ball. And here's what it looks like when the fire is up above your winery.
And you can see the wind is kind of blowing northwest. So that's probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now it's dark and the wind is starting to shift and come down the hill. That's a terrifying picture. And by the way, we have a generator and the lights are on because the power's out, but the generator is running.
There's Cal Fire.
Yep, they brought in 3 big D6s to cut paths up the hills, to fire paths. And when the wind came up, the fire just jumped right over where the fire breaks.
And here's something you don't see every day.
Yep.
Just a 737 dropping flame retardant.
Yep, dropping Phos-Chek up on the hills above the winery, and we thought we were saved after they did that.
I'm going to play a video, I think. Oh no, this is actually, here's the windmill.
That's the windmill, and you can see everything around the winery is on fire. Brandon took that as my son as he was leaving the facility. You
Yeah,
can see
here's the tasting room, here's the roof of it and the outline and surrounded by flames.
that was the guest house.
Let me see. I want to try to find that video. I'll be back in a second. Well, not back, but so there was a guest house, and some of the items, and Jessica was fantastic in making certain things were spared. How did you rebuild? How did you decide, okay, we're going to tear this down and start over, or that one we can refurbish? How did that all come about?
Well, number one priority was to get the winery open. So, like it or not, it was during COVID, so we were shut down. And as a result, we had a cleaning crew of probably 50, 60 people that was, oversawn by Jessica. They came in and literally with spray bottles and toothbrushes, and they scrubbed top to bottom the barn, the winery, and the offices. And that took about 2 months. And by the time we were done scrubbing everything and replacing, the restrictions in California and COVID were lifted, and we started bringing people in. So the timing was good from that aspect. Farm-wise, we've had to replant 4 acres, and unfortunately, it's 4 years before we'll get a cluster from those acreage. We lost probably 24 pieces of farm equipment, tractors, dump trucks, flatbeds, all kinds of things that were up by the vineyards, but close to the forest, and they all just burn up.
Now, in the vineyard, so does that vineyard above the winery have to be replanted?
The Petit Syrah, half of it had to be replanted. It was amazing how resilient Mother Nature really is, because we lost one big oak tree, but all the other oak trees have come back. The vineyards where we thought we were going to have to replant 10, 15 acres. Yeah, that's the video. So this is from the security camera looking, that is our office building. And this is the security camera looking at the fire right before the generators went ingested flames.
And the security camera is on the windmill.
That is correct, pointing east. You can see off to the left, those flames jumping up are probably 300 feet tall. And the vineyard isn't burning, it's all the debris between the vineyard rows, the leaves and sticks and things, and that's what's on fire.
Yeah, and the speed with which these flames and these clouds are moving is just horrifying.
Yes.
That is just tremendous resilience to come back from that and still produce amazing wine and rise back up again. So congrats to Jessica, you and the team and everybody that was involved.
So 2020, we were able to harvest the Chardonnay, some Pinot Noir that we made rosé, and the Sauvignon Blanc. All the reds were either burnt or smoke tainted, and we lost the entire harvest in 2020. 2021, we had a frost in 2020. Then we had drought in 2021. And so the quality of the red wine in 2021, spectacular. The writers are already, acclaiming best wine we've had in 5 years to a decade. Unfortunately, the yields are down about 30%, but the quality is excellent. We're hoping because of the rain for 2022 that we'll go back to a normal harvest.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that. So you had a really, really accomplished career in industry, computers, and a company that you started in your garage. And I'm sure you had some trials and tribulations and got knocked down and had to get back up, because every entrepreneur does. What have you learned in your years in that industry that have served you so well in this new adventure?
I think the biggest thing is people buy from people. And so if you take good care of the people and you take care of your customers, they will continue to come back and be loyal. So we do everything in our power to make sure our customers are happy in our wine club. And Jessica is primarily responsible for that. We try to make the best product we can. The difference in the computer industry, if you keep something more than 90 days, it's obsolete and it's worthless. In the wine industry, if you put it away for 3 or 4 years, the price goes up. So, and if you make a mistake in the wine industry, you can drink your mistake, whereas the computer industry, not so much. But it actually comes down to just taking care of people. And, we try to make an environment where you're going to come in, we're going to make sure you have a great time, depending on if you're sitting on the swinging couches on the patio, by the fireplace inside, on the big tables, or if you're in the barn. We've got about 14 different areas that we can do tastings in. You're going to have great wines. The chef, we have a private chef, either 1 to 3 on staff at any one time, depending on the weekends or the days. And they're constantly coming up with new bites. Every 6 weeks, the menu's changed, and they're delicious. I think we hired the chef about 10 pounds ago.
And something that Mike just said may have escaped your ears, but I want to come back to this. He did in fact say swinging couches, and this isn't a fraternity trick or anything like that, or a prank. Talk a little bit about, and by the way, it's a little bit, if I'm not mistaken, Monolani has some couches. They don't move though.
No, they don't
walk through.
They've got big ropes. So, hey, who doesn't like, from a childhood, who doesn't like a swing? So what we did was we created these 10-foot long couches that have 2-inch by 3-inch tubular steel underneath, that have 3/8 inch steel rods, and they're rated up to about 1,600 pounds, 4 guys, 400 pounds a piece on the couches. And we have 4 of those, but I'm only going to let you go about 8 inches from center, because there's some boys sometimes that go, here, hold my wine and watch this. They're probably the most comfortable thing we have in the environment, because they sit on the patio, you kind of swing back and forth, you have your wine. It's very relaxing, and sometimes it takes dynamite to keep people out of there.
Yeah, I can imagine you could simply taste away an afternoon with that view and those couches, and having a chef bring you gourmet food to pair with the tasting. That's a pretty special experience.
I think so. It's been very popular. In 2019, we were voted by Luxe Magazine as Winery of the Year out of, I don't know how many thousands of wineries out there. We were very proud of that.
Impressive, impressive. So I never want to say what's next, but I'm going to say what's next.
Well, we're bumping up into capacity storage, and we have 5 caves. Only the cave number 5 was a portal that we went into the side of the mountain about 10 feet, knowing that eventually we're going to have to open that up. And we're designing plans right now to 2023 to open that up to do more wine storage, because we're out of storage capacity.
Oh, okay, I get it. So let's go to the 2017 Cabernet that is in everyone's glass. And by the way, folks, if you don't have the Davis 2017 Cabernet Sauvignon, it is on the Cellar Angels website, but many people acquire this in the Cellar Angels sip kit. So just simply navigate to the Cellar Angels website. You'll see that we put together a kit that has 4 or 5 wines in it that rotate. So you can actually buy the kit, and you are set for the next 4 Fridays in a row to taste along with individuals like Mike that made the wine, own the property, and you get an intimate, up close and personal experience to talk about the wine. So you are a self-confessed big, bold red person. You insist on Cabernet. So break down the aromas, flavor profile. I know you're not drinking the 2017, you're drinking the 2012.
Yes.
So walk us through what a person might experience in the glass, and some of the flavor profiles that you aspire to craft.
So first, you're going to get Bing cherries, you're going to get leather, you're going to get some charcoal forest floor, just a big, deep profile. And first sip, you get all those flavors, and then mid palate, it's just beautiful, wonderful, soft, velvety feel. And then as it goes back down your throat, you're going to get a little itty bitty touch of spice, because I think our winemaker puts a little Cap Franc in there.
Ah, and do you have a favorite wine that is your go-to from what you produce?
Well, currently our Calistoga Cabernet Sauvignon, I don't know what happened, but it's just magnificent. It's it's the best right now among the Oakville, Rutherford, and Howe Mountains. I mean, it's just spectacular. I don't know if it was the aging or what happened, but they all evolve over time, and we've built those so you can store them for a decade or so. And that 2017 Calistoga is delicious right now.
That's awesome. No, and you're right. Unlike agricultural crops, you can't age them too long. So grapes seem to do quite well with a little bit of age on them. I'm curious, when are you coming back from Hawaii? And then what is Jessica may have shared it with us earlier about the angel bonus offer on how to use your house in Hawaii. Did we skip over that, or was that not part of the fine print?
I must have missed that conversation.
I do want to, I'm always interested in entrepreneurial stories, and yours is fantastic because you're pursuing your dreams and you went to the School of Hard Knocks in addition to IU. Is there anything that you wish someone would have told, a younger Mike Davis, that from a wisdom standpoint or lesson standpoint that you now know?
Businesses are people dealing with people, whether it's employees or customers or family or whatever. Probably in the beginning, pay a little more attention to, individuals and their track records. A lot of times I took people at their word and it wasn't what they said they were. And then the ones that do a good job, we take great care of, because they're cherished. They're like gold. Even now at the winery, we do a lot of special things for people to make sure that we keep them on board and that we don't lose those people, especially nowadays, because it's so hard to find employees, let alone good employees.
No, that's a good point. Well, and it's interesting too, because you've mentioned it a couple of times now, how important people are, not only the people that work with you, but also the people that are coming in to acquire the product that you're producing and taking care of that. And it still boils down to relationships, and there's no app for that. So you can't shortcut these, you can't hack them. You have to continually put forth the effort to build them, to nurture them, to take care of them, to establish the trust. And you obviously learned that because the team is very loyal. Jessica is amazing. She's just literally, I wish, I don't know if there is going to be cloning in my lifetime, but if there is, I would clone Jessica because she's just so damn good. And she helps us out a ton. So thank you for her. And Mike, my glass is empty, so I've got to go get more. So thank you for you. And I do want to say one thing, the pop quiz in the email that was answered, the answer was seeds. There was only one person that got that last week, only one, 10 wrong entrants. But the person who got it, who couldn't be with us, is Jeff and Jane G. I can't say their last names because we got a cease and desist letter on saying last names, and Mission Control has been yelling at me to not say last name. But I do want to fill up my glass and continue to drink some of the Davis 17 Cabernet Sauvignon and toast to you, Mike and Jessica, and everything that your team has been producing, because it is done heartfelt, authentic, and really the proof is in the bottle.
Oh, our pleasure. Thank you for allowing us into your homes and to share this moment. We hope every single one of you comes out and visits our winery. We would love to have you as our guest.
Oh, and you guys have to go and let us know when you're going, because it is a treasure to see. And Peter, I did see your question. I will try to make certain we let people know the airtime. Next week is our final sip of the year. It's the big annual holiday extravaganza. Wow, will there be some giveaways and prizes? Just a lot of celebrating. I want to thank Mike Davis. I want to thank Jessica. I do want to thank all of you, because obviously we can't do this without you. A special thanks to Sean and Marilyn, who let us shoot inside their cellar. And it is a Cellar Angels cellar. I see Degadillo, I see some Hoops family, I see some Tampa Bay, I see a whole bunch of stuff. And this is the types of wineries that Cellar Angels helps discover and share with you, just like Davis Estates. Very, very special wine, incredibly special people. All of you have a great week. Thanks so much for everything. Be good to one another, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.
Cheers. Aloha.
Yeah, mahalo.